let's talk about what happened. Now, if you're just joining, my name is Jarrell. I am the developer of the Silver Falls games. And in March, I announced 7 exclusive new titles for the Wii U and the 3DS. The reason I did that was because Nintendo announced the end of sales on the Wii U and 3DS, and people all around the world were pretty bummed out, including me. So I thought if there's anything I can do about it, if there's anything I can do to sort of cheer people up and give us all something positive to talk about and give us a positive way to view the end of the Wii U and the 3DS, then I should do it. So, as you can imagine, producing 7 games in 4 weeks is a huge amount of work. So these games were not started from scratch. Most of them were games that have been in development for a few years now, and I had them in development for the Switch. They were going to be launching over the next 2 years or so, so most of them were around 50 to 80% complete. 2 of the titles I started from scratch based on asking what people wanted to play on the Wii U and 3DS if they could have one more new game. So, it's been an interesting journey. I started strong and I was working 130 hours a week. That takes its toll on you after a while. When you're in your teens and your 20s, that sort of thing is easy. You can do that again and again, and you wake up and you eat a couple waffles and then you're full of energy again. So it was getting towards the end of our due date. We had a specific date where all of our Silver Falls titles needed to be submitted, and if our games were not submitted before that deadline, then we would not be able to get those games onto the eShop. I had promised people 7 games, so I really wanted to deliver on that. Now, getting a game onto the shop is a huge, huge effort. It's a lot of work, not just on my side, but on Nintendo and on their side. And what I asked of them was a lot. It was quite demanding what I asked of them. And there were a number of situations where, given the amount of time, it really should not have been possible to get these 7 games successfully submitted. And when it came down to the wire, I worked absolutely as hard as I could throughout March. There were a number of days where I had to work through the night, so I pulled all-nighters, quickly got 4 hours of sleep, and then I got back to work again because the work needed to be done. There's a heck of a lot of paperwork. I have to send that through, I get feedback, and then I have to process the paperwork however I'm asked. So what happened at the end of March? Well, after pulling multiple all-nighters, I had worn myself out due to working so hard and not getting enough sleep that by the end of the month I actually couldn't see straight. So I was still able to get work done, working on the games. I was really on autopilot, but I was still getting things done. But in terms of filling out the paperwork, preparing my files for submission and filling out the forms and sending them through to Nintendo, I was making errors. Very small errors, but there were errors that prevented the files from being submitted. And even leading up to that, there were issues with the way that some of our games were registered that prevented them from being able to be submitted. There was an issue where Ghoul Busters was going to be available in North America on all models, but in Europe it was going to be new only. So if you had an original 3DS or a 2DS, you wouldn't be able to get Ghoul Busters, and it was entirely my fault. I should have worked harder to fix that ahead of time and to make that to resolve that issue, and I accepted that with Nintendo. I said, I accept that. I should have resolved this sooner. But at the last minute, Nintendo came in with the save, and they had fixed what needed to be fixed in an unbelievable amount of time. It should not have been possible to get all of that work processed in that amount of time. And I was floored, you know. And when I approached Nintendo with my proposal for these games, my pitch to them was, there's so much negativity around the ending of sales on the eShop that I don't personally want to see that the legacy of the 3DS and Wii U. I don't want it to see that generation end with anger and disappointment. I wanted people to end that with celebration and excitement, to say, yes, these were great consoles, check out these games that we got at the last minute. I want people to really be happy about that. You know, these are great consoles that we've all had a lot of fun with. I feel just as passionately about these consoles as you do. And obviously there's a lot of things that I can't discuss business-wise with our how we work with Nintendo, but I can't speak for them, but I felt like they agreed with how I felt, and that it would be good to get some last bit of excitement to bring some energy to the 3DS and Wii U eShop. And I don't feel like I'm imagining that, because they put in so much work. I was so exhausted by the end of the month, and I had stumbled a bit, and something happened, and I couldn't get Guardians and Metal Exterminators to work on original 3DS hardware like it was meant to throughout the vast majority of development. I developed it to run on original hardware. Time had run out. I was so far beyond exhausted, and because I couldn't get it running on the 3DS hardware, we were going to lose that game. And it's a massive game. It's a big title. It's been in development for a year and a half. And I just sort of hung my head and I said to Nintendo, I've stuffed this up. I'm sorry, you know, I promised this many games, I won't be able to do it. And I don't know how they did it, because it takes a lot of time to register these things, to process things in their system. And I can't tell you the inner workings of that. I'm not fully familiar with it, but I am familiar that this process takes a long time. And somehow they were able to make it work. Nintendo did what needed to be done so that I was still able to submit these games, not as backward compatible with the 3DS, but with new exclusive. And if it wasn't for them, they really went out of their way. We have that game now, so Nintendo effectively saved Ghoul Busters and Guardians and Metal Exterminators because there were going to be problems. So it's because of them we'll get those games. And I had accepted that I was stretching myself too thin within 4 weeks. 7 titles is a lot to promise. And I was so grateful to them. But back to the end of submission period, it came down to the minute in North America. It came down to the minute. I had made errors on my paperwork, and this is something that generally it could take weeks to sort out. Doing resubmitting, waiting to hear back, getting submissions back, and sending it back and forth, and doing the paperwork process. That could take weeks to sort out, and if you keep making errors, it just extends it more and more and more. And I had pushed myself too far physically. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I thought I was gonna make a joke, but I mean, I don't think this is the sort of situation where you can joke, because this is something that means a lot to me, and I think it means a lot to people around the world. So I really wanted to do my best, and I had really stuffed up on my paperwork, and there are like 3 or 4 submissions that should not have made it through the submission process on time because I had messed up. You know, a typo here, a typo there, I got a number wrong, a number here. And what happened was, the people that work in Nintendo's offices, they, not physically, but literally picked me up and carried me across the finish line so that these games could be submitted. They were so fast with messaging back to me and corresponding, and they were telling me verbatim, just fix this bit on the paperwork, this part here, just fix that really quickly and email it back and we'll process it. And it's hard to describe unless you're familiar with this process how incredible that is, because this is a process that can take weeks. And we had hours left to fix it, and it wasn't their fault, it was my fault. And they really just picked me up and carried me across the finish line. And it came down to hours in Europe as well. But the people in the office there, I can tell that they really wanted people to have these games. They really want to be able to bring some last minute excitement to the 3DS and the Wii U. Because it would have been very easy for them to say, oh, we're sorry, there was too many problems with your paperwork, we couldn't accept it. But that's not what they did. They put in so much effort to make it so I could submit all this work in time. So to everyone at Nintendo, I'm so grateful for giving me the opportunity to do that. I don't know how to thank someone for something that's that incredible, because this means that it's because of those people at Nintendo. It's because of them we're going to have these games. You know, anyone could have made these games. Any developer could have come in and said, I'll make these games. And there are other developers that are making last-minute games for these titles. You guys should definitely look those up and see if those are titles you're interested in, because we want to bring something special to the end of these consoles. You know, we're passionate about these consoles just like you are. We enjoy games just the way you do. And so that's pretty much what happened. And I wanted to clarify that. And I know that posts and videos got a bit frantic at the very end, because I was in a state where I was thinking, I've promised people these games and I just couldn't physically handle getting to that very last finish point. I had gotten the games to a point where I could submit them, and I couldn't get the paperwork right because I actually couldn't see straight at the end of the month. So it really, you know, if it wasn't for Nintendo, I wouldn't have been able to submit them. So that's where we are now. I've given them my submission schedule for this month. So every week I will be finishing a launch version of each game. So day one launch, the game will be 100% finished. It'll be fine-tuned, make sure everything's just right. At the end of every week this month, I'm submitting one. So we want to make sure that the games are as great as they can be. So that's where we are. I'm so grateful to everyone for showing your support, for commenting. I know I haven't been able to respond to every single comment, but do know that I am grateful for everyone showing your support, for everyone that's telling other people about the games, for everyone that's picked up the games recently, and especially for everyone that's been around for a while. You know what? I'm so grateful to you guys, and it's because of you guys that I can make these games, and I want to make these games something that's just for you guys. I'll make them as good as I can be, and I'll pack them with as much content as I can. So, hey, I'll do my best this month as well, and I'll make sure these games are as good as they can be on launch day. So, now that we've got that out of the way, why don't we just enjoy the campfire for a little bit.